Alright, what we're going to do is create a game like this. You can see my Space Invader game. Down the bottom here I've got a player. Up the top I've got aliens and they're just marching towards me at a rate of 100. When I press the space bar it shoots, and when I push the arrow keys it moves across. And so you can see I can shoot the aliens here. After we've created this game, our aim is then to go through and we'll actually make the aliens shoot back so that they can kill the player. And that way you'll be able to have the aliens fire at the player as well, and so you'll be dodging bullets as they come through. But at this stage, what we want to do is just get our player able to shoot at the aliens, and then the aliens destroyed when the bullet hits them. So in order to do this, what you will need to do is, you'll see on my level 1 screen, so this is our scene, this you'll need to create after you've created the other objects. We've got a player, and so our player object is made up of this lovely little shape. It's a sprite 2D, and then you'll see, there's my sprite 2D. You'll see I've put a collision polygon around the outside of it, which gives us a consistent shape around the outside of there rather than just using a rectangle. You could just use a collision shape around that instead, but I've used a collision polygon and draw the polygon to match my shape of my sprite. Then within here you'll also need a bullet. You'll see that my bullet is just a simple polygon as well, and it's also got a collision shape 2D, but you'll see that the collision shape is just at the top of the bullet. Okay, I don't want the tail to cause a collision, because otherwise every time you shot the bullet, the tail of the bullet would be connected with the player, and so the bullet would be hitting the player. And so I've just made the head of the bullet have that collision shape attached, whereas the tail of the bullet is empty. And it is you'll see that when you go across to the player bullet, it's a character body 2D. Then I've got my aliens. They are also a character body 2D. I've just used a simple sprite 2D on them, and then they've got a collision shape, and you'll see I've just given them a nice circle shape for that one. You could make each of these sprites, instead of making them just a simple 2D sprite, you could use an animated sprite and add frames so that they look like they're moving. Same thing with the player. When you're looking at the player, if you wanted the player to actually move or animate, instead of just using a 2D sprite, you could use an animated sprite and create frames for that as well. I am in the process of creating an alien bullet, and so that will be the thing that the aliens shoot back. However, at this stage, he hasn't been coded, so we'll worry about that later. Let's have a look at the code. So within our game, let's jump back to level 1 first. You'll see that I've got one copy of the player. I've got multiple copies of a wall object, and the wall object stops the player from bounding outside of the screen. And then I've got multiple copies of the alien who will descend towards the player as they're moving along. And so once you've got those multiple aliens on your level, they'll all work according to the code that you've got set up. So then our code. On our player, when we go to our script, you'll see that the first thing we've had to do is set up a bullet speed, and the bullet speed is going to be the that's not the player, that's the player bullet. This is the player. The first thing we've done on our player is we've set up a player speed, which is equal to 300, and so that's how quickly he moves left and right. And then we've got a velocity vector. And so you'll see that the velocity vector is used down here in the code, and that's going to be multiplied by the direction and multiplied by the player speed by delta. So that's going to give us our velocity in the x direction. The other thing that we've got is our direction is determined by whether the left button or the right button is pressed. And so line 10 does that. And instead of using move and slide, we're using move and collide, and we're going to apply the velocity to that. So based on the velocity, we're going to move and collide. And we want to do that because when we hit the walls, we just want to stop, or when the bullet hits us, we don't want the bullet to slide along us like we did in the car racing game when we collided with the walls. We wanted to move and slide along the walls, whereas in this game, we want to move and have a collision event rather than have a slide along. And then we are also looking for input being the accept key, which is the enter key or the space key. And when the enter key or the space key is pressed, we're going to run a function called fire. And function fire is directly under here. And so function fire is going to look over here at our scenes and find the bullet scene, so the player bullet scene, and it's going to load in a copy of that scene. And it's going to create a copy of the scene as a variable called fire bullet. It's going to set the position of the fired bullet equal to the current X position and the current Y position of our player. But when it looks at the Y position, it's going to subtract 40 from that. And the reason why we're doing that is because we don't want the bullet to appear in the middle of the player. We want the bullet to appear slightly above the player. And so when our fired bullet position is determined, it's actually going to be at the same X position, but it's going to be slightly higher than the player. And so that's where the bullet's going to appear above. Then it's going to look at the current scene, so our parent, because our player is in the parent, and it's going to add a child to our parent, and the child that's going to add to the parent is called fired bullet. And so that's going to create a copy of the bullet in our scene when we press the UA accept key. The final function that we've got in here for the player is called die, and what that's going to do is that when the alien bullet hits the player, it's going to run that function die, which is going to cause the game to quit. You could in here, instead of quitting the game, this is where you would say you'd lose a life and restart the level instead. But at the moment, I'm just going to program it so that when the alien bullet hits the player, it's going to die. But that can be a next version where we actually have multiple levels and multiple lives. Then if we jump across to our player bullet code. So in our bullet code, you'll see that we've got a bullet speed. It's set to 600, so it's slightly faster than the player. It also has a velocity vector, and so you'll have those two variables set up at the top. Then the function physics process. The velocity for our bullet is going to be set to the up direction. So this is our player bullet, and so it's going to head up at the bullet speed, or multiplied by the bullet speed, multiplied by delta. So that's going to work out how much the bullet should move since the last frame. You'll remember the delta is the time since the last frame. And so by doing that multiplied by the bullet speed, it's going to be a fraction of 600 because we want to move 600 frames per second, but this is doing the changes per frame. And then it's going to do a move and collide rather than a move and slide, and it's going to be looking for any collisions that occur as it moves and slides. If a collision occurs, so line number 9, if a collision occurs, and we're going to look at the collision, we're going to find out what we collided with, so that line there, and if the object we collided with has a method called kill, then it's going to run that method called kill. So it's going to look at the object we're colliding with, line number 9, this get collider is looking the object we collided with, and if it has a function called kill, then the object we collide with is going to run that function called kill. And when we look at our alien, you'll see that down the bottom of our alien script, there is a function called kill, which destroys the object. So few free destroys the object. Now, if you were fancy, you could play an animation in this function, showing an explosion and do all sorts of things like that. Whereas all I'm doing is whenever a bullet hits the alien, that alien is disappearing. It's going to be destroyed. Jumping back to our player bullet code, player bullet. And then the final thing that we're doing in this if statement, so line 9 was remember looking for the collision, running the collision kill function, and then line 11, Q3, is destroying the bullet as well. And so you remember these codes are operating on the bullet, and so that's going to destroy the bullet that collides with the alien as well. And the last couple of lines, line 14 and 15, are saying if the bullet gets to the vertical position Y, which is less than 5, then destroy the bullet. Now the reason we do that is because we don't want the bullets heading off the top of the screen and continuing to exist in the computer's memory. but not actually being visible. And so that if the position Y is less than 5Q3 will mean that once they get to that point, they will disappear. Then our alien code. So this is our last section that we'll go through. We're setting the alien code. It's going to be up here. The drop speed is 10, so they're gradually getting closer to us, and they have a velocity vector, and all they're doing simply is setting their velocity equal to the down direction multiplied by the drop speed, and then they're doing a move and collide based on that velocity. And I've already explained the function kill. So when a bullet collides with the alien, that function kill is running to destroy the alien. We would then need to next program our bullet, and what that's going to do is randomize some timing for the bullets to get fired and then fire bullets at the player as well. But that's our next step. Hopefully that's helping.